Hospice Northwest has really been trying to create more of a compassionate community in Thunder Bay, and what that really means is creating a community that really cares for one another, and that means, co-workers knowing what to say when you've lost a loved one, or schools introducing books to young children that talk about death and dying. So when Hospice Northwest is putting on this art show, it's a way for us to get these discussions to start happening in everyday lives, and to get people talking about death and dying and grieving and their experiences, because it's not something that we need to go through alone behind closed doors. It's really something that we can come together and support one another. So this event is called A Personal Lens on Grief, and it's a photography show that will be hosted at the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. So we've invited people to submit photographs that really shows what their grief looks like.
So the photo I submitted is a little leaf, and I named it the grief leaf. It has a hole in it. It has a piece missing and an empty space. And I feel like that symbolizes how we can feel when we lose somebody. When someone you love dies, I think a part of you dies too. And I feel like I'm the leaf with a part of me missing, with a hole or an empty space.
I guess how this photo reflects my grief, it speaks to how colorless my life has become since I started grieving the loss of my loved one, and how I feel very alone and very isolated in that grief, and how the contrast I feel our grief is, I guess you could say, how we feel one thing one moment, and the next moment we're feeling a completely opposite feeling. And I wanted something to represent that, to show that, to capture it. And I think that being alone on the bench really speaks to how alone I've felt in my grief journey.
So I'd say my photograph reflects my grief because I really see grief as a path, like a path that you don't really know where it's going. It's a little bit foggy, and there's twists and turns, and you just kind of have to go down it. And in my photograph, you'll see that the subject or the person is laying down, and I feel like when I was grieving, there were definitely moments where I just had to take a break, stop walking, and just reflect. So I think this photograph really captured that experience for me.
My photo was taken in St. Martin. My dad took it. I feel that the ebb and the flow of the waves really reflects grief, and that it's very personable, and no grief is the same. No one can say, okay, a month's done, you need to stop grieving, you need to move on, and you need to continue. The photo also has the sunrise coming up on the ocean, and I could see myself in the distance, the light coming through the clouds, but the clouds still overtaken, the darkness is still there, and some days are really hard, some days can't get out of bed, and some days I'm just like everyone else going about their business.
The photo that that I submitted, it reflects both my parents died within 3 months apart, and both believed there was a heaven, and my dad died first. So when I took this photo, I was actually reflecting on the little image of that little symbol that says mother. I saw an image of my dad in the background of that photo, and so it really brings peace to my heart knowing that my dad had been with her all along through her own experience of death, and that he was waiting for her. I don't know, I can't even explain it. It's like I do have grief, but at the same time I have joy that they're together.
I think this project has helped me in my grief journey because I've been able to reflect. I've been able to acknowledge those feelings that I've been having. I've been able to embrace them by doing this project. I've been able to share with my loved ones and my friends and co-workers and people who are coming into the project that you're not alone. I feel very open about how I'm grieving, and it feels wonderful to be able to share that with others, to be able to share that with my community, and it's been definitely a big part of healing for me.
This project has helped me on my grief journey by allowing my creative self to come in contact with my healing self, and just allowing me to express the grief that I'm feeling through a different outlet.
We were asked to write about our photo, and for me that meant sitting with my grief and my thoughts, my emotions, and just reflecting inward. And what I thought about was that how and I'm probably not the only one, but how we put our healthy routines and our self-care on hold when we're in grief. And it's probably the time where we need it the most.
I think Hospice Northwest does a wonderful job of creating spaces that allow people to be who they need to be, as raw as they need to be, in order to work through their grief journey. And knowing that grief is a process, that grieving is a process, is a fundamental in able to surviving it. And Hospice Northwest creates those spaces and allows people to feel whatever they need to feel at the time.
It's a really big step towards creating a compassionate community and making grief be a more normalized part of our everyday life. And I know that when I was really deep in my grieving, I would have loved to have been able to go to an art show like this and see the things that I was experiencing on the wall.
Hospice Northwest is just a very supportive environment for anyone who needs them, and they're able to really help people on their grief journey.
You know, like you can have support groups, you can talk to people, but going through grief, like with some artistic mode to it, that's really good.
I'm really happy that my photo has a purpose, and I hope that it has the ability to shift somebody's perspective, somebody that may be stuck in their own grief and maybe move forward. Or maybe it has the ability to confirm to somebody that they are exactly where they need to be in their healing journey.
I feel that by Hospice Northwest taking on this project, they've allowed us community members to not feel so alone and isolated in our grief, and given us a voice and allowed us to write our own narrative. And I think that's the most important part of just being able to heal.